Hello, my name is Glenn, and welcome back to the Cryptonest. Thank you for coming back today. I want to go over a few things with you. As I was explaining yesterday, I ran into something called Bitcoin a while back, and it kind of grabbed me, pulled me down a rabbit hole. And today I wanted to explain to you more about what it is and why I got so excited about it, and why I think it's so cool. So I hope you'll join me here. I hope you enjoy the information that I share with you. If you do, you can always please feel free to subscribe to the channel so that you can and click on the little bell down there. That way you can be notified when I release new videos. If not, that's fine too. I appreciate it. It does help support the channel. Thank you very much. But moving on here, Bitcoin. What is Bitcoin? The information I'm going to share with you today is not my information. I did not create this. This comes from blockgeeks.com. I'll go ahead and drop their link down here in the description below so that you can read through this at your own time and get more information. But I wanted to use this to kind of reference a few points here to kind of help make my point. And I appreciate them putting this together. Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency, a form of electronic cash. It's a decentralized digital currency without a central bank or single administrator that can be sent from one user on the peer-to-peer Bitcoin blockchain network without the need for intermediaries. Well, basically what that means is that I don't need a bank in order to be able to make a transaction, a financial transaction. I can go ahead and I can send money from me to you or to whoever, and I don't need to have a bank in between me to do that, to say yes or no, or let's say I needed to send money to, a long distance, on a long distance transaction. It could be done in a matter of minutes or seconds without all the high fees. And that sounded very interesting to me. There's a lot of information on this site. Please feel free to come back and check it out. Like I said, I'm only going to be hitting a few points here just to kind of guide me through this. But when Bitcoin came out was around 2008. It emerged in 2008 just after the Occupy Wall Street. Accused big banks of misusing borrowers' money, duping clients, rigging the system, charging boggling fees. Well, that would definitely get my attention too. And as we all know, back in 2008, there was a huge housing crisis. People were losing their jobs. It was not a very comfortable time. So the Bitcoin pioneers wanted to put the seller in charge, eliminate the middleman, cancel interest fees, and make transactions transparent, to hack corruption, cut out the fees. They created a decentralized systems where they could control your funds or where you could control your funds and know what was going on. I like the sound of that. Personally, I like being in control of my own money. I don't like having other people be in control of what I do and how I do it. It's just, it's my personal freedom. I like that. And I don't see any reason to pay incredible fees for no reason. I just recently went to the bank not too long ago, and I expected to have a certain amount of money in there. And I went to the bank and they were like, you're in the negative. I said, excuse me? No. They said, yeah, well, this fee came through your monthly transaction or your annual fee. So they're charging me to use the bank account. And of course, that put me into a negative, which they were kind enough to waive the overdraft fee, since it was their fee that they took out that overdrafted it. How kind of them. So, I can totally understand the wanting to eliminate the middleman, and making transactions transparent so we know what's going on and why we're giving these people our money, what it's doing. So Bitcoin was created. It's come a really long ways. A lot of different places use it now. Of course, according to this article here, it's being used in jewelers. There's a large jewelry chain in the U.S., private hospital in Warsaw, billion-dollar businesses such as Dell, Expedia, PayPal, and Microsoft. They're using it too. Bitcoin Magazine publishes its news, forums, discuss cryptocurrency, and trade its coins. It has an application programming interface, price index, and exchange rate, so that you can see what all the prices are at the different exchanges for the different coins and so on and so forth. It's come a long way. Some of you may remember a little thing called the internet. Back when I was in high school, it didn't exist. Kind of dates myself a little bit, but it's the truth. They were putting the first computers in high schools I think my junior year of high school is when I heard about our very first computers going into the schools. So I never got a chance to even touch one when I was in school. I did have my own at home. My parents went out and got me a Commodore 64, which had 64 kilobytes of memory on the entire computer. It was great. I loved it. I thought it was just the best thing going. And right now, the amount of memory that whole computer had is less than what we need to store one little emoji or icon nowadays. I mean, it's crazy. So, but that computer, we've come a long way with technology since then, was my point. And Bitcoin in the last 10 years has made a lot of strides since its first inception as well. A few key points here to highlight. Bitcoin's white paper was originally released in 2008 by someone by the name of Satoshi Nakamoto. Who is Satoshi Nakamoto? That's the question that I'll get back into here in just a moment. On January 3rd, the Genesis block was mined. It was the very first block, which actually brought the Bitcoin network to life. A lot of people consider that Bitcoin's birthday. On January 12th, a few days later, the first Bitcoin transaction went through, and Satoshi Nakamoto transferred 10 Bitcoin to Hal Finney as proof that the system actually worked. It was a pretty monumental day for Bitcoin, actually, being as it was the day that the very first transaction ever took place. In December 16th of 2009, they released version 0.02. By 2010, the market cap exceeded $1 million. It's had a very explosive, very fast growth among the technology world. It's become very well developed. It's moved very quickly. In June 2012, Coinbase launches. Now, I found this very interesting because I didn't realize actually that it was that far back. I keep hearing for the last 2 years, I've been hearing, institutional money is coming, institutional money is coming, institutional money is coming, meaning the banks, meaning, all the big financial institutions and so on and so forth. And when I do just the simplest of research here into Coinbase and their original launching, it states right here, and just on Wikipedia, that they received a US $75 million investment led by Draper Fisher Jetson, the New York Stock Exchange, USAA, and several banks. So to be totally honest, and from what I can see here, the financial institutions were partially responsible for helping this get up and going to begin with. I'm not going to get into much more of this here on Coinbase. There's a whole lot to it. We'll get into that further on a later date. But I mentioned Coinbase yesterday in my first video as a place where you can go to buy and sell Bitcoin and create a wallet there. And in doing a little further research, I found that very interesting that some of the early investors were actually the New York Stock Exchange and several banks. The market cap on Bitcoin today, as it was just stating, was $1 million. In that other article, it was stating that the market cap exceeds $1 million in November 6th of 2010. As of today, our market cap is $239 billion. So it's been just a little bit of growth since it started. So Coinbase launched, which gave the people the ability, retail investors, the ability to go ahead and buy and sell Bitcoin through their bank accounts. That was back in 2012. There's a lot of other stuff that I'll get into at later dates here. I don't want to get into all that right now. It gets too deep, too much. I want to try to keep this somewhat short so that everybody can get on with their day. So basically, Bitcoin being a virtual currency, people, okay, you know how for the longest time people wrote checks. They needed to pay a bill or something, or they would wire money, or they would use cash to make a payment. Nowadays, you can use Bitcoin. The most common thing that I could consider that you could consider Bitcoin is kind of like almost like using your debit card in a way, because when you use your debit card, you're not actually using cash. You're using virtual digital cash that goes from your bank to the person that you're purchasing whatever it is from. And Bitcoin is kind of the same thing, except instead of cash, it's Bitcoin that's being transferred from one person to the other through a digital network that there is no physical Bitcoin. You cannot hold a Bitcoin. You cannot see a Bitcoin, but it does represent virtual currency that you can spend. Kind of crazy, but as they say, magical internet money. Here, they explain how you can use this big long security code when you first look at Bitcoin and you first see the website address that you have to use or the wallet address that you have to use. It's a little daunting to get all the numbers and letters in the right order. They are a long sequence of numbers that you have to put in, and if you get them wrong, your cryptocurrency goes off into cyberspace. So you need to be very careful and make sure that you are checking your addresses properly. Double check, triple check. It's always a good idea. As this states, if you put it in another way, cryptocurrency is an exchange of digital information that allows you to buy or sell goods and services. The transaction gains its security and trust by running on a peer-to-peer computer network, similar to Skype or BitTorrent or some type of a file sharing system. I'm sure many of you out there have used Skype or BitTorrent. The network is similar to that, to where the information goes from person to person, as opposed to having to go, you put your credit card in, the money comes from your bank to the other party, putting the bank in the middleman to receive the interest from you. So some of the properties here, it's irreversible. As I was stating earlier, you do not want to make a mistake when you're putting your transactions in, because they are not reversible. Not you, not your bank, not the president, not even Satoshi himself can reverse a transaction. Once it's been done, period. Which really sucks if you send your funds to some place that you don't want to send them to, or some kind of a scammer, hacker steals them from you, which is why it's really important to use proper security, which we're going to go over as well going forward. It is pseudonymous, meaning that it's not really connected to your real world identity. It's used through like your email addresses a lot of times. One of the ways you have an address, as I was stating, it's a long code of numbers and letters. That is your Bitcoin address. They're usually around 30 characters or so. 24, if I'm not mistaken. They're usually around 24 characters. And you want to make sure that you get them lined up. Now, being pseudonymous, they can see the transactions through the network. They can see that the transaction went from wallet A to wallet B. However, the information that is not readily available is who owns those wallets. So it is anonymous, but not anonymous. There are ways it can be tracked, which is why all the garbage they talk about in the mass media about everything being used for terrorism and being used for money laundering. I got news for you. The US dollar is used for more money laundering than Bitcoin ever could be. And more people have gotten away with it over the years using cash, because there is no way to track a cash transaction. On a blockchain, it's also immutable, which means it can't be changed. So once it's put there, it's there for anybody who has the ability to read the information on the blockchain. It's there for them to be able to see. So it's not like you can just say, no, I didn't do that, because it's right there on the blockchain for God and everybody to see forever. All this crap you hear in the news all the time about how they're worried about it being used for terrorism, being used for this, for that, for drugs, for human trafficking. You know what? I say good. I hope it is being used for drugs and human trafficking and things of this nature, because that gives the government a perfect way to track everybody down and stop them. So if that's the case, why haven't they done it yet? And why are people still getting away with it? If it's being used for those purposes, it should be easy to track them down and determine exactly who's doing what. So don't believe everything you hear in the mass media. This garbage about it being used for nefarious purposes, 99% chance that the US dollar is being used hell of a lot more often than Bitcoin ever is for those types of purposes. Sorry to say, sorry to burst a bunch of people's bubbles. Now, can it be used by people with bad actors? Sure, there's bad actors in every industry. I thought it was rather interesting here recently when, he's in our government, Secretary of the Treasury. He's part of the financial wing of the government. Mnuchin goes online and talks about, in a video, talks about the fact that he doesn't believe that cash is used for money laundering, and that Bitcoin is used for money laundering more often than cash. And he believes that they can prove that without a shadow of a doubt. And not 10 days later, Goldman Sachs, the company that Mnuchin used to work for prior to being put into the government, two of the vice presidents at Goldman Sachs were arrested for, lo and behold, millions and millions, if I'm not mistaken, billions of dollars of money laundering. Ouch. So much for that, Mnuchin. Nice try. Once again, don't believe everything the mass media has to tell you. So, the transactions, fast and global. They're propagated nearly instantly to the network. They're confirmed within a matter of minutes. Now, Bitcoin has become a little bit slower. I can send a transaction around the world. It does take approximately 10 minutes for a confirmation for a block to be confirmed. So it's gotten, with the network being bogged down with more people using it, it has gotten a little bit slower to get your transactions through, which is why it's not really the best way to go pay for a cup of coffee right now, and why people are pushing the whole store of value idea on it. And that's okay too. I do believe that more people ought to use it more often for transactions, because it is a peer-to-peer digital currency. There are some technical barriers that make that a little bit more difficult. I'm perfectly fine with holding on to a bunch of it and watching it grow. But I would also like to be able to transact it. In fact, I'm in the process of trying to convert my life over to where I can live on cryptocurrency 100% and do the best I can to get away from the US dollar, to get away from using the banking system, and to actually, be able to take total financial control of my life. That doesn't mean not paying taxes. That doesn't mean doing anything nefarious. I'm okay to pay taxes. I'm here in the United States. I have to pay taxes. That's fine. If I make income, if I, make gains, I'll pay the taxes, pay the IRS. Don't get in trouble. It's not worth it. At the same time, I definitely want to try to get away from the dollar. The global currency, the global economy is not great. Let's just put it that way. Just ask the people in Venezuela how well, their dollars held up when the times got rough. So, and by the way, there is a huge spike of people in places like Venezuela that are turning to Bitcoin because it is a better way for them to store their money. I mean, when you have such mass inflation like they do, people just throwing their money in the streets, wheelbarrows of money just to buy a loaf of bread, it's crazy. Bitcoin is secure. Funds are locked in a private key cryptography. You own your private keys, nobody else. Your keys, your Bitcoin, not your keys, not your Bitcoin. So once you put your Bitcoin into your wallet with your private keys, that is your money. It's more secure than the bank, more secure, as it states here, than Fort Knox. So I would much rather have control over my own security of my money than having somebody else in control of it. And permissionless. I don't have to ask anybody to use cryptocurrency. It's just a software. Anybody can download it. They can run it for free. You can send Bitcoins or any other kind of cryptocurrencies. There is no gatekeeper. You can send it to anybody you want, wherever you want, however you want. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we're seeing as far as all the pushbacks within the media and with the government and so on and so forth is financial institutions are worried that they're going to lose their control over the mass public if they lose control over the finances. I mean, if you control people's money, you control their lives. Think about it. And I personally would rather be in control of my own money. Just my own personal thoughts. Anyway, Bitcoin started approximately 10 years ago. We just went ahead and celebrated a 10-year anniversary of Bitcoin's birthday. The Genesis block was printed in January of 2009, January 3rd of 2009, which marked the official launch of the Bitcoin network. This is another page here that I will go ahead and drop the link in the description so you can read through at your leisure if you're interested in getting more information on this. But this goes right back to basically what we were talking about with banks. In the actual Genesis block of Bitcoin is a message, and that message comes directly from the newspaper that was printed that day on Saturday, January 3rd of 2009. And the message within the Genesis block is a copy of the headline, Chancellor on brink of second bailout for the banks. And just like the Beatles, Satoshi left a backwards message in this block 0, as it states here. It was mined with an original Windows-based PC. He was mining it using his own CPU. Didn't even need to use all the crazy computers that you see nowadays that they have for mining them. For anybody that's seen those big pictures of all the big mining farms, back in the day when they first started it, you could mine 50 or 100 Bitcoin in a day with just a laptop. Would have been nice to be there, but here we are today, and just as well. So moving forward, as you can see here in the Genesis block, the Chancellor on brink of second bailout banks. This was directly created in response to all of the bailouts that were going on back in 2008. People, I'm sure you remember the housing crisis, all the financial troubles, all the banks that were crashing, all the CEOs and all the people that walked away with their hundreds of millions of dollars and never went to jail. The billions of dollars that, were handed out to bail out the banks, that everybody went, well, what did you do with it? And the people in charge of handing it out said, well, we gave it out to the banks. And they said, well, which banks did you give it to? And they went, I don't know, to the banks. Anyway, $720 billion just. So there's a lot of theories as to why he created the text as it states here. You can go ahead and read this on your own. I do believe personally that it was a message to the banks, that this was directly correlated to that, and that he created this as a way to help people in the future going forward to get away from the banking system that he felt was so corrupt. As I was stating earlier, Satoshi sent the first transaction to Hal Finney. Here it talks further about that. Block 1 was mined on January 10th, and Hal Finney actually tweeted about the software on that day. You can see his tweet down here below. He actually mined block 70 something. He was one of the very first people to be involved with Satoshi. I don't know. Pretty sure nobody ever actually met Satoshi face to face. I'm pretty sure everything was always done through forums and bulletin boards and emails and so on and so forth. I don't think there was ever any actual handshaking done that I'm aware of. Please, if I'm wrong, don't crucify me. Somebody just let me know. I'd be happy to, and point me in the direction of the information. I'd be happy to educate myself further on that. But to my knowledge, nobody ever actually met Satoshi face to face, which is one of the reasons why we really don't know who he is. There's a lot of theories on who he is and why he did it. Honestly, I don't really care. All I'm concerned with is that he's created a system that is going to allow people to be in control of their lives. a way that people with no banks can get banks. People that have banks can get unbanked. As I stated yesterday, I went to the bank and I asked them about my savings account and how much I actually make in interest. They were telling me it was less than 1%. When I showed them my wallet, my Monarch wallet, making over 8% on my stable coins, they were pretty impressed. I mean, my banker was pretty impressed. So, I mean, that says something right there. Anyway, let's see here. Move past this now. And who is Satoshi Nakamoto? As I was stating earlier, nobody really knows who he is, who he was. In fact, there's a lot of different theories that it's not just one person. It may have been a group of people. He was the inventor of the original Bitcoin protocol, publishing the paper as we stated. He released the first version of the Bitcoin client in 2009. He was a participant in the network and in the program until 2010. Towards the 2010, the end of 2010, November, December 2010, he turned the program over to a gentleman by the name of Gavin Andresen, who was kind of his right hand and lead developer on the project at the time, working kind of number two guy, I guess, working on the project at that moment. So he went ahead and turned it over to Gavin, saying that he had other things to do. In spring of 2011, they received the last known email from Satoshi, basically stating that he had moved on to other things and that things were in the good hands of Gavin and the other people involved. And it's probably better that way because of the fact of Satoshi, nobody really knowing who he is. It's not only leads to a little bit of the mystery behind it, but it leads to a lot of security behind it, as I've come to learn. And there's no office, there's no CEO that you can serve a subpoena to. There's no office that you can walk into and just flip a switch and turn it off. It's a decentralized peer-to-peer network. There's millions of computers around the world running this network. If one computer goes down, the rest of them are still running. It can't be stopped. It can't be shut down. I think personally it's genius. It's just my personal opinion. A lot of people think he was Japanese, as it states here on the page. Satoshi meaning clear thinking, quick-witted, and wise. Naka meaning medium, inside, or relationship. Moto can mean origin or foundation. So I mean, it would be very easy to put together a pseudo name of inside organization, inside foundation, inside origin, anything of that nature. And these would all apply to the person who founded a movement by designing a clever algorithm. Of course, you're going to create something like this. He's going to leave things a little bit shrouded in mystery, I guess. So we don't know that it was a he. We don't know that it was a she. It could have been a group of people. There's all kinds of theories on it. Everything from tin hat theories to people saying it was government. If you go down through the actual published information that is out there, there are so many people that could possibly be. As it states here, they've done studies here using texts and writings and emails to try to determine, to find likenesses in the way that they speak in these emails, to try to find patterns, to try to track down who it might have been. They've come up with a whole bunch of different possibilities. A lot of them are listed here. I see Jed McCaleb listed here. Michael Clear is listed here. Martin Malmy, I'm not really familiar with him. Michael Pierce is listed here. I see Dorian Nakamoto listed here. Dorian Nakamoto actually hired a lawyer and released an official statement saying that he was not Satoshi Nakamoto, as there was a lot of evidence, I guess, pointing towards him being a possibility. What I find interesting is anybody that research has been done on that suggests that they might be Satoshi says, no, not me. I don't, definitely not me. And then you have other people like Craig Wright, for example, and several others that there's been plenty of research done in court cases as of recently and other things. And I mean, I don't know. I wasn't there. I can't speak for it specifically. I don't know who Satoshi was. Maybe it was Craig. Maybe it wasn't. My thoughts. I doubt it. Sorry, Craig, but just my personal feelings. I could be wrong. Nick Szabo is listed here. There's so many people that have been listed. Research has been done. And the funny thing is, all the ones that research points at, they all say no. And all the ones that have the evidence that show that there's probably a good possibility that it's not them, they're all the ones that are jumping up and wanting to try to claim the glory and the fame. And personally, I think anybody smart enough to have created the system bowed out when they did for a reason and will most likely never be back. It's just my personal opinion. I could be wrong. What's he doing now? No one knows. As I said, the last emails that he received, that anyone received that I know of, was back in that I've been able to find, was back in April of 2011. And he stated that he's moved on to other things and it's in good hands with Gavin and everyone. So did he work for the government? As we just stated, possible conspiracy theories. Who knows who Satoshi is? Here, I think this probably sums it up best. And whoever wrote this, my hat's off to you. Moreover, it was smart to use a pseudonym, he argues, because it forced people to focus on the technology itself rather than on the personality behind it. At the end of the day, Bitcoin is now far bigger than Satoshi Nakamoto. And that's the honest to God truth. I mean, from something that went from an idea on a piece of paper to where it's now, to this day, has $239 billion worth of market cap. It's trading at $8,781 as we speak. By the way, this is a website called CoinGecko. Really great website. They have a bunch of information on a lot of different coins. You can see this page here shows the top 100 coins. Apparently there's exactly 6,069 coins that CoinGecko recognizes and 398 different exchanges. Bitcoin is currently showing a dominance here. Can't read that, I have to move myself here. It's currently showing a dominance of 66% over the other coins, meaning that 66% of the people are investing and putting their money in trading in Bitcoin as opposed to the other coins on the market. I'll get into more of the other altcoins and things later, but as you can see, there's quite a few of them here. I hope some of this information has been helpful. I hope that I've been able to put the information out there in a way that is relatable and understandable. I really would appreciate any comments, feedback. Please like and subscribe if you find any of this information interesting. If not, thank you very much for taking the time to listen. And I hope you all have yourself a great day. I look forward to talking to you tomorrow. Thanks.